Okay, so I thought I'd make this video just kind of going over my thoughts on this whole Dune Awakening thing. And I think some of the stuff that has come up is really weird. And I don't think it's necessarily the player's fault. I don't think it's necessarily like anything that we're doing. But I do think it's one of those things where gamers are not being informed about what's going on. The information is extremely hard to find, and there's a lot of unfair comparisons being made about different things. And I'm just going to try to break down some of the questions that people have and some of the stuff that's going on. Now, they call this Dune Awakening a survival MMO, and it's an RPG because it has leveling aspects and things like that. And a lot of the people are saying stuff like, how come people say this isn't an MMO? Dune has been promoting itself as a survival MMO. But a lot of the people are making the comparisons with things like Ark and things like Conan Exiles and different things like that. And this isn't really a super fair comparison because the way it works is entirely different from those games. Where you have stuff like Rust, which has like 100 people, 200 people, however many people the server can hold. And then they have a 3-month period, then they reset, or a 1-month period. It depends on what the server's set to. And pretty much all of them are not official, or they're private servers. One of the biggest issues that they've had with this game is that they have a thing where you can rent a server. So people assume that this is a single player game with no multiplayer capability, and that's not true because they keep saying, "Oh, well, this is a survival MMO." So MMO implies that it's a massive multiplayer online game with other people. The RPG aspects are there, so technically this is an MMO RPG, and there's tons of official servers actually. The thing that's going to be hard for you to find is if you actually go right now and you search and you're trying to find information about this, it's buried. It's buried to shit. And most players are not going to do what I did, which is take 2 hours or however many hours and search out this stuff. Because if you look at like most streamers, for some reason, I believe that they were told, especially if they had early access, to not film the first of that screen where it shows you how the servers work and how everything's done. Now, if you've played something like, for instance, New World or something like that, the servers work similar, okay? You pick your realm, that puts you into a thing, and people are saying, oh, well, there's only 40 players in a server. There's not only 40 players in a server. There's 40 players in the location that you start in, and it's 40 plus. Everything that I've read says 40 plus, but that's not how many players are actually in the game playing with you and doing other things. The big desert area is the actual area where you have, they keep saying hundreds of players. Okay. What it actually is a system, which I don't understand why someone like me needs to even make this video and explain this to other people, because the people want to know something very direct, okay? And they've only made one video on it explaining it. They have not answered it. Everything about it is buried. No one knows this unless they've played it, which has a barrier to entry because a lot of people are like, so I don't understand. Is this a survival game that's a single-player game, or am I playing with other people? Because a lot of people, for some reason, are using the rent a server feature to create their own, basically, offline realm for an online game. Now, I don't necessarily know all of the details of the renting a server feature and how they work, but I assume only the part that's not online is your base. And then once you go out to other realms, it has to be connected. It really wouldn't make any sense otherwise. But the thing is that like a lot of this information is buried pretty deep. You have to go and you have to seek this information out. Now, Deep Desert has hundreds of players. That's what they've been quoted as saying. Between 500 and 900. Okay? It's 9 servers that each can support up to 100 players. Technically, the limit because I'm in game dev, and technically for the limit is 900 players. What you're going to see is about 60% to 70% of that is a good cap, and then they'll spin up another server, or they'll have another server to handle the load. Why? Because servers are not really meant to run at capacity. I know that people struggle with this because they don't know a lot of like the finer details, but in-game logic dictates that they would put in a hard stop like that, because you might have friends that join you, you might have stuff. You need to you don't really want to have servers reaching that 100% capacity across the board. And they may even lock these servers before it gets anywhere near that number. So this number that says between 500 and 900 is technically accurate. The max would be 900. The players that you might experience on this map should be closer to 5 or 6. And there shouldn't be, and I expect it to be less than that because the amount of people playing. But the good news is the game is doing well. The game is doing absolutely well. And we'll just bring it up to 1 month because I know it's been out longer than that. But what we have here is, your 24-hour peak, your all-time peak, and it seems like people are pretty much playing right now. They're not dropping out. But this number should be a lot higher than it is, considering that Dune is not that expensive. But, I just feel like the information that's getting out there is actually really limited. And one of the things that we have to look at is looking at, these reviews. A lot of people really like it. This guy says, I was unable to play with my friends. They locked the servers, so I can't join them. The game is good, but I'm not commenting on the PvP because I've had little first-hand experience. The game does not respect your time. That's another thing that's come up repeatedly, is that it is I wouldn't say grindy game, but you might as well, it's not meant to be played in one session. It's not meant to be played in 2 sessions. It's meant to be played out over the course of months, and this is an MMO. This is a game that is meant to be played. Now, Conan Exiles has been brought up a lot for some reason in this case, where they keep making comparisons to Conan and things like that. And while true, you could play on a server with other people, and there could be many people, it is just not the same game. They even made an official video 11 months ago. This is the only video that they've made on it, though. Okay, and it's what makes it, what makes Dune an MMO.
2 different game types, which I'm sure on the back and front end have to be treated differently. How does the player experience those different aspects from a server infrastructure point of view?
Yeah, so a lot of survival games are either you have solo games like Subnautica, you have these local server 8-player sort of Valheim style games. Then you have larger single server like Conan Exiles or Ark. You have large sort of players on a single map. And then with Dune, what we're trying to do is have these multiple maps where you can play with many, many hundreds of people, right? So you'll be playing with lots of other players, right? So it is a large world to explore and share with others.
Can I assume I am in a server with many, many people. Can I move between servers?
It's almost like 2.
So right here we have, this is where you begin. There's other hubs, and then there is the place that you actually play with these tons of people. You do not play with these tons of people in your main hub. This is a very limited number.
Choosing a server in an MMORPG, but it's a large infrastructure of connected servers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the idea is that...
Now, they say that you can play, again, this video is truthful, okay? The company's not intending on lying, but they say that you can play with your friends. Yes, if there is space on their server, you can play with your friends. Is that always the case? No, it's not. You and your friends might end up having to create new characters together on a different server if you want to play together if y'all didn't start at the exact same time. I really want to show
you start
the
server,
moving
which
around
is
the
the
map.
Hager Basin, right? We call it the Hager Basin. The Hager Basin is the starting server. It's a server with a minimum of 40 other players. It's a place where you can build, craft, survive, progress. If you want to play specifically with friends, you want to join the same version of Hager Basin, because Hager Basin can have multiple versions.
Which is why it sucks if you can't.
And then from there, you move outwards.
I can select which Hager Basin I'm starting with. So like if we start in the game at the same time, I can make sure that we're spawning in the same.
Not only that, our server browser also tells you where you're from.
Different areas, different servers, different maps on said servers. How do I traverse
this is going to show you how you actually get to these other maps.
between maps?
So once you're ready to leave the Hager Basin, you craft yourself an ornithopter, for example, and you fly out into what's called the Overland map. And the Overland map is a server, again, running, that you can meet hundreds of other players on and allows you to see all the locations in the world. So you physically fly between locations on the Overland map.
Now you said my homies can come pick me up. If you're a good homie and you don't want to put me in a dangerous spot, where do you bring me early on? Where can I meet other people? Where can I meet up with my guildmates even?
Yeah, so once you've sort of explored the Hager Basin and you leave with your friends, you go out into what we call the Overland map. And in the Overland map, you have an overview of the entire world, and you can sort of see like the different maps that you have as an option. And one of those options are the social hubs, Harco Village and Arakeen, which are differently themed based on the different factions in the game, obviously, right? So you can go and visit Harco Village. It's a safe space. It's kept fairly okay, peaceful by the Canley Peace. And in there, there's bars to visit, vendors to visit.
Oh, you gotta relax every once in a while as well. Now, once I'm done dancing and I slept off my probably hangover, I want to get out into the action. Where am I going?
So then you'll go back to the Overland map and you'll fly to the Deep Desert. The Deep Desert is this massive area. It's 500 kilometers squared, or minimum 500 kilometers squared. It's actually a bit larger than that. There's and that's where you can meet hundreds of other players. There is probably going to obviously be a player cap if too many people go there, but you should be able to handle quite a lot of people. And that's a completely seamless set of servers that are all connected together. It's generally a PvP map with a strip of PvE as people enter so that they can be safe when they come into the map and don't get ganked. And then you head out into the desert and you have these adventures where you're harvesting spice. The cool thing about the Deep Desert, and this is one of the things that I think I've mentioned last time, is kind of unique, is that we have this thing called the Coriolis Storm. And every week the Coriolis Storm wipes the Deep Desert and resets it with a new landscape and new points of interest. So it's an infinitely explorable space and a really cool place to hang with your friends.
I do love that. It really sounds like a very unique blend.
Okay, so a lot of this is PR stuff, and that's why I'm skipping through it, because it's not important. It's just them making stupid fucking jokes to relate to the players. And, like, honestly, no one gives a shit about this. Like, it might put a smile on your face, but really, we're trying to get questions answered. So with that, you can kind of see a breakdown visually of what I was talking about, where you really only have that big desert space where you have this 900 people, supposedly, that you can play with. Now, a lot of people are saying, what counts as an MMO, what doesn't count as an MMO. And the reality is, there was never anything in the beginning of time, when this word didn't exist, MMO never had a set number of people. It doesn't have to be, and that's one of the main problems is back a long time ago, what could be massive multiplayer? Well, anything that has a shitload of people on it, but a shitload of people back then was like more than 10, For a long time, I remember a lot of the games that you played online could have one other person that you'd have to connect directly to. Then they shifted to a more a different approach. We could have up to 4, then 8, then 16. And then I remember when shooting games finally had 32, that was one of those things where the people said, holy shit, this is crazy. Now we have games like Rust where you could easily have 100, no problem, in the map. No issue. You just spin it up, go, get your own little private server and just go. Like, there's no issue. So we say, okay, well, then what is massive? Well, massive is just anything you feel like it is, honestly, because they never coined this term with a literal limit about what massive means. nowadays massive means, like an MMO means like an actual thing where you join the server and there's hundreds of people, and this technically meets those social benchmarks for what the word means, and it also meets the definition that was defined by the people who made it. But I don't understand why this information really isn't out there, and we keep going to people talking about, like, how many people is available. But I think another thing that's going to hurt the game, and I think this is going to be one of those things where an issue is going to come up where the game is going to get hurt initially by people not being able to quickly find stuff about it. You can go to a lot of these streamers. This is one of the only streamers I've found that actually showed that first menu. And people are just looking for information. And if they can't find it, the issue is going to happen where they don't want to play the game. They don't want to put the time in. They don't want to, because they don't want to play another Conan. They don't want to play another, Rust. They want to play an MMO. MMO players are not looking to play small-scale survival games, okay? So why would they waste their time buying it, getting it, doing this, setting it up just to find, oh, this is just a single-player whatever? It's not, but that's how they feel, right? And even though it is cheap, I think a lot of players are being diverted away from the game due to a lot of negative stuff. There is a lot of stuff online right now that is very critical and very negative of the game. And I do think this is going to be one of those things where, because we've had stuff in the past that's happened, and because we've had other games that have let us down, that we're not really looking at this as like a good thing. And then most of the people who are playing it in a big capacity where you have millions of views are saying, like, it is what it is. But I do think that in the long run, it's going to hurt the game. And it's going to be one of those things where we look back and say, damn, I wish I had tried it when it came out. I wish I had given this team money because they actually made something pretty good. Now, all of the smaller people that weren't paid to play it. So I looked through hours and hours and hours of gameplay. I looked through tons of different streams, and there was a lot of streams that admitted that they were given access, and even though they weren't technically paid, because I said paid here, some of them were paid, and then also some of them were just given access, right? They were just given access to it, and they feel more inclined to give it a good review than a bad one. And a lot of those guys, I don't feel like they played it. But there was a couple people that I saw that played it all the way to the end game. And if you go online and you type in Dune Awakening end game gameplay, that will give you a better idea of the game and how it feels, and from people who have actually played it, that didn't just get a key, play it for a day or two, or stream it for a week and then, exit out of it. And you don't want to look at any early access gameplay, which is what's dominating the entire search algorithm right now. You really want to look at people who are playing it now live, and you want to really specifically focus on the creators that have gotten to the end game. And I know, it's one of those things where I say, oh no, if you just put the 40 hours in and get to the end game, then you'll really, really like it. Well, you shouldn't have to do that, right? The game should be fun in the beginning. Now, I do think that the character creator and all this stuff is pretty cool. It's nothing revolutionary. And to be honest, the game does feel like it could have been made 10 years ago and we wouldn't have any problem with it. I do think that the way that they're handling the servers and the way that they're handling everything is good, but also, even WoW servers can support up to, 2,000 people, right? Again, this is a game that's had a lot of time and effort, put into, and it might even be more now with the way they've stitched together the servers in the way that they do. But is this a traditional MMO? Absolutely not. But I do think the blending of genres doesn't detract from the game. I think if you really want to play it, you should try it. If it looks interesting, They've got a ton of different classes. They've got a ton of different stuff that they put in this. Now, this game is not based on the movies. This is an alternate timeline, completely separate from the movies. There's nothing that you need to worry about as far as like, as long as you know the terms and you know the things that have already gone in the movies, you're pretty caught up. There's nothing really to think about. You'll have a good time playing it, and it won't be a huge issue. Shout out to this guy who I'm using for footage in the background, Space Games. He's a cool dude. He just became an American citizen not too long ago. He's an awesome guy. You should check him out. But I will say this. If you're thinking about trying the game and you've been on the fence because you've heard really negative stuff from like these big streamers, I think this is not everyone's cup of tea. If you are interested, I'd go ahead and buy it. I've put a lot of time and effort into some of these videos that I've made here. And if you've watched me before, you know that I don't say this lightly, and I give a lot of criticism to a lot of these things. This is not one that I would sleep on. I think you should try it. I think you should play it and come to your own conclusion. It is cheaper than a lot of the other games. I was going to say any other games. That's not true. A lot of indies have come out with, obviously they have cheaper prices, but I'm saying as far as like a well-made game, I think if you give money to this company, it's a good thing. It's a good thing overall. I think it, again, is going to be one of these things where a lot of people are going to say they wish they had tried it day one. They wish they had played it, because what's going to happen is with the negativity, despite it having good reviews, and that's the thing too, no one's talking about the reviews. A lot of these streamers that I've watched and a lot of the people that are talking about how, oh, it's boring, it's slow, it's this, it's that, they come up with a bunch of reasons. They don't talk about the fact that it's gotten very good reviews. Everybody that is playing it is super happy with it, but they don't seem to talk about that. They just seem to talk about their own personal experience, and that's fine. But their personal experience of having played it for like a couple hours is, I think, unfortunately, games have tutorials. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of companies are bad at making tutorials. And I think once you're through with that, and once you're really going through with the game, you can kind of see where that might not matter as much. Now, am I going to claim that this game is like super revolutionary and all that stuff? No. I think I do agree with people that it's really just another survival game. But I do think the theme is unique, obviously, and that the company is trying really hard, which a lot don't. A lot just sell a product, and once it's out there, they kind of like, they've made their money, and it's whatever. But I think overall, if you want to try the game, don't listen to me, don't listen to anyone. Go ahead and try it. And I hope I cleared up any misinformation or stuff that you were looking for. Because when you try to look for stuff about this game, dude, it's so crazy that the information just is not out there. So if you like this and you want more of this, and you want more of these videos where I give you like honest stuff, go ahead and subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one.